And that's one of the questions that I want to discuss today, is then eventually on a growing path, the knowledge that I have will leave me wanting. Because the discovery, as Unity puts it, as Charles Fillmore put it, my understanding of God is forever expanding. And every day, if I am a true spiritual seeker and aspirant, I will be hungry and thirsty for the new revelation of God, the new understanding of the divine. And if I'm only attached to a mythology of thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, I'm stopping that forward progress.
And that's the idea that we have discussed in the past, and we'll discuss it further, and I'll try to clarify more from Baha'u'llah's perspective, the idea of progressive revelations. That if you're stuck with the teachings and writings of 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, we can't progress.
And Unity would say, and this might be a bit of a difference, if we are stuck with the writings of yesterday, not just 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, or 10 days ago, or 10 years ago, the progressive revelations are happening every moment of an awake being. And my understanding of the Baha'i tradition is that every 1,000 years a new revelation to build upon the past,
yes,
to bring the past into current times is happening. Unity's perspective would be that we don't necessarily need to wait 1,000 years for that to happen, that it's happening today, that prophets are being born today, sages and great spiritual masters are bringing things to the planet that are necessary for our continued in evolving.
Now this is probably one of those points that we want to discuss, to see if you can come to a common understanding, or at least for both of us to explore further.
Sure.
Now, this idea of progressive revelation, as you beautifully put it, is the fact that yes, religions come, and as these religions come, they give us more and more deeper truths from generation to generation. Now, I know that in reading Unity writings, you think of Jesus as the master teacher. And we also believe him as a master teacher, but we'd like to think of him or know him, not only Jesus, but Moses and Buddha and Muhammad and Baha'u'llah. The common word that we use is manifestation of God.
Mm-hmm.
They had sort of a direct contact with God, who gave us the teachings for that generation and generations to come. Okay, so that's one point that I want to make, and then get your reaction from it. And then the other point is that these teachers are not only good master teachers, but have a revelation, and that revelation is from that God, and that becomes the other point, whose essence we don't know. We don't know what the essence of God is. And Baha'u'llah explains that we know him through his attributes, which are all the virtues, which again Unity also emphasizes, that you and I can have those virtues. And then by having those virtues, we can become God-like. So I'd like you to elaborate a little bit.
Well, let me speak a little bit about that. The Unity path doesn't say that Jesus is the only way. Certainly not. And there is a great deal of respect and adoration for every prophet that's ever walked the face of the planet. We have that in common. As much for Baha'u'llah as Jesus, as Muhammad, that there is truth brought to the planet. And so we look for the common wisdom that is in all of them.
Right.
Where the difference might be is, well, certainly these prophets were more awake. We would say they were more awake and attuned to a higher reality, a higher and deeper vibration of truth. But they are not necessarily the great exceptions to that. They are leading the way to what is possible for all of us to wake up. They are calling us into a more awake state. Therefore, they are not the unattainable exception to the rule. They are the leaders bringing us into a place where they are an example of what is possible for all of us, what is possible for me to the degree that I am awake. So I would aspire to follow their path, to emulate them, to the qualities of being more godlike. And Unity would say that it's good to get away from the word God and say love, light, compassion, kindness. These are all words that also describe God.
Yes.
And our job is to emulate them in such a way that we are a little bit more awake.
Yes.
But I think that the difference would be, with all due respect, is that Baha'u'llah is the great example for unity, not the exception. And that revelations are possible for the two of us, for all of us in the human race. By following the example, we too can have a deeper understanding of God, and they're pointing us in that direction.
I totally understand. And I think we need to continue that discussion again on the question of progressive revelations. What Baha'u'llah explains is that as far as the fundamental moral teachings of all religions are concerned, they're fundamentally one and the same. On the question of forgiveness and kindness and goodness and the things that you mentioned, these are fundamentally the same from Judaism and Christianity. They have been more refined, of course, in Christianity as compared to Judaism. They've been refined a lot. But then essentially those teachings are one and the same. Baha'u'llah explains that the difference comes to social teachings, not because, and he would say, God forbid, Jesus didn't know, or Moses didn't know, or Buddha didn't know, but because humanity was not ready for some of those social teachings. So he says, the moral teachings of all faiths are one and the same, essentially. The social teachings change not because God didn't know, but because we were not ready. And so, on the question of race, on the question of gender, and on what we call the social teachings, for example, Baha'u'llah suggests one global international language in addition to mother's tongue. So these are what we call the social teachings. Or the question of doing away with disparities and economic justice. Of course, there's so much teaching in Christianity with regard to taking care of the poor, which is the same. But then Baha'u'llah also has a plan, devised a plan for that these extremes of wealth and poverty should go, because they would create instability in the world, and is not, and so on. And that would be among the social teachings of faith. But what I want to mention, though, is that the Baha'i faith, and I think all religions, and I want more clarification from the unity standpoint, all religions consider these prophets or manifestations of God to be totally unique. I mean, all of them to be totally unique, in the sense that we can aspire to be like them. And one of the short books of Baha'u'llah, the Hidden Words, a lot of it deals with that. That yes, we are made in the image of God. In one of them he says, "Noble have I created thee, yet thou hast abased thyself. Rise then for that for which thou were created." So a lot of it deals with the fact that yes, we are all made noble. We are all made in the image of God. But then he also goes on in putting us in our place, in effect, and say that if we can reach that point, we're not God. We are drops in that ocean.
Yes.
He is the ocean, but we are drops. And our hope is to be in that drop in that beautiful ocean, pure ocean. What is your perspective?
Well, I think the way I would look at that, drops in the ocean, is something I've used many times. St. Paul talks about a hand, or a foot, an eye, or an ear, all part of one greater body. The hand is certainly not all that the body is. I would make it to a smaller degree. I am a cell within the body.
Yes.
That I can play my role at such a high level that I am contributing to the greater good of the entire body, but I could never possibly be all that the body is, which would be God.
Yes, yes.
Which would be the humanity and all creation as the expression of God.
Yes.
But my job is to play my role as a cell, maybe a little speck within the cell of a finger of the whole. And as I do so, the body will be then transformed. So as I'm working to live these attributes of kindness and compassion, the words that I would use to define the essence of life and God itself, I'm not only changing it for myself, I'm changing it for all of humanity.
Yeah.
So my waking up is not purely selfish, but it is for myself, but I am affecting a much larger field in which people that I will never meet are being affected energetically. And it's important to recognize in the unity movement, it's all about energy. We are not these bodies. We are not these experiences. It's all a grand illusion that's just made up of the human mind. And when we return to the place of true source, the energetic level, then we transcend all of the difficulties and darknesses of the human condition. And we're exchanging energy with people across oceans. We're exchanging energy, and the human race is being changed one drop in the ocean at a time. There is a cleansing process happening. And those that were most awake on the planet, Baha'u'llah, Jesus, other prophets, contributed a great deal to that change in the overarching consciousness.
Yeah.
And I want to play my role to follow that example and to know that I'm making a difference, and to stay moment to moment, day to day awake. That we're connected. We are intrinsically connected. In the whole, we cannot be separate. The cell cannot be separate from the body. It can't. The drop of water cannot be separate from the ocean. We can think we are, and get very full of ourselves, thinking, "Oh, I'm a whole ocean," and that will never be the truth.
Right. So in that sense, we see eye to eye. Then I mean, it was also, like cell in a body, drop in the ocean, but we are all part of that whole.
Yeah. So my question then to the Baha'i community would be, you are a drop of water. Is Baha'u'llah and the Bab and Abdul Baha, Abdul
Baha,
Baha, also drops of water in the same ocean, no less or more than yours? And to some extent, that's one of the things that I've been playing with.
Yeah.
Is it such a beautiful reverence and worshipful approach to the prophets of the Baha'i tradition that is a little different. Charles Fillmore and Myrtle Fillmore, the founders of Unity, although brilliant examples of what is possible and teachers of what is possible, there isn't perhaps the same adoration for the vessel, the road sign pointing us in the direction. So my question would be, is it blasphemy in the Baha'i tradition, and I'm trying to understand, to put yourself as an equal in the Baha'i tradition as a drop of water in the ocean, perhaps more awake or less awake, but the potential is there to be at that same level?
The potential is there, but from all I read from the Baha'i writings, and a lot of those things are in this small book, the Hidden Words, is that we are drops in that ocean. But these manifestations, Jesus and Buddha and Baha'u'llah and others, are manifestation of God, which means if God is the sun and they are mirror, in spite of what some Christian denominations believe, that Jesus is Jesus, but he's also God and all that. But Baha'u'llah explains that God is the sun, like the sun. But then these, Jesus, Baha'u'llah, and others, they're perfect mirrors who have been able to get all those rays of sun and reflect it on humanity.
So is it, the Unity tradition would say, absolutely, absolutely, the great example of shining the source.
Yes.
Is that same potential for me to become a mirror to reflect the attributes of God? Does it exist in me, or will I forever be less than? Unity would say, again, Jesus was reflecting the presence of God.
Yes.
They say, well, we're often asked, is Jesus the Son of God? And our answer will always be yes. And so are you.
Sorry.
And so am I. And so are we. We may have forgotten it. We may not be there, but we do have the potential of being a great mirror. That my life can be such a reflection of the infinite compassion and kindness that I too can eventually get to that level. Now,
my understanding of all religious traditions, including Christianity and Baha'i faith, from all I've read, is that, again, those are the perfect mirrors, and we, based on our capacity, are still drops or cells in that ocean. It could be a healthy cell, it could be a healthy drop, but there's still that drop. And in that respect,
So would the worship be of the mirror or of the source?
The worship is always of the source.
And that would be very much in alignment with what unity teaches.
And Baha'u'llah particularly emphasizes, you're not worshiping me. We're all worshiping the one God.
And Jesus said the same thing.
Yeah, same thing.
I've looked in the scriptures to find where he says, worship me.
Yeah, never.
He doesn't say it. He says,
That's
follow me.
Follow me.
Use me as the director, the pointer
Exactly.
to the source.
Exactly. So it's exactly the same thing, and that he never wants to be worshipped, but he's claiming to be that Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
But then going back again to the idea of progressive revelations and these people being the perfect mirror, and we all having the capacity to be perfect to the extent that who we are. And in that respect, two aspects of it. One aspect of it is explained here in this another small book of his. It's called the Seven Valleys. And in the Seven Valleys he says that in order for us to come to that point of true reality and the real perfection, he says it's a 7-step process. And the last step, which we say I made it, and that last step that I made it, he calls it the valley of absolute poverty and total nothingness, which means absolute total humility, that I have come to realize that I'm really nothing. But then he says, when you come to that point of absolute nothing and total worship of the Creator, then you become everything, because then you have really merged with Him. So it's a very poetic writing, but that's how he explains it.